Hi everyone, welcome to today's lunchtime webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we know some of you, so a big welcome to you, and sort of for those who don't know me, I'm Tennealle Burnside, a business lawyer at Gibson Sheep here in Wellington, and I'm really excited to be starting this webinar series, The Empowered Entrepreneur, with you all today. Just some housekeeping, that if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A function, not the chat function, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go. We should have some time for questions and general discussion at the end, but we're aiming for this webinar to be around 45 minutes, maybe a bit less, so still some time to pop out for fresh air and sunshine on your lunch break. So a bit of background, we use the phrase legals for business confidence because I'm guessing for a lot of you, this is the first time you've watched a legal seminar, unless perhaps you were forced to by your work. And I guess for many of us, the law can be a scary and intimidating prospect. Often people only come to lawyers when things have gone a bit pear-shaped and they'd like some help. They want to know what their options are and how to get out of a sticky situation. But recently I've started thinking, why should it be so scary? Where are these amazing entrepreneurs and business owners, these creative side hustlers? Why don't they want to hang out with a square lawyer like me? Well, maybe it's a bit of a case of you don't know what you don't know. And when it comes to legal things and your business, you really do want to know. I want you entrepreneurs, you business owners and side hustlers to understand your business legals, to have confidence going out into the world with your great product or service or your big idea and feel like you've set it up in a way that's protected, that you understand what's going on and that you have confidence in. So we're going to start at the very beginning. I'll just give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So if we can just have the next slide. We're going to look at firstly some business structures, then some key legal documents, and then we're very lucky to have Samantha P from Simple Studios join us to have a chat about what it's like to work with a lawyer. So on to business structures. First off, how are you going to do business? What kind of business structure are you going to set up? There are sort of three types of quite common structures, and you might have heard of these: a sole trader, a partnership, and a company. Now, there's a few things you want to think about as I'm running through these types of structures and how it might apply to you. Do you like to make all the decisions? Do you like to work with others? How much is your business earning, or might it earn in the future? Is it your full-time job at the moment, or is it on top of your normal job, like a side hustle? And then lastly, what kind of personal assets do you have that you might need to think about protecting? So going through them, a sole trader, it's a single owner business. It's a one-woman band. But it doesn't necessarily have to be just one person. You can hire staff within this structure. It's a really popular choice when you're first starting out, as it has low costs for setup and quite low admin. You don't need to be registered on a company's register. You'll probably already have your IRD number, so you can file your income tax return. And then you might need to register for GST if you're going to earn over $60,000. Now, the positives of a sole trader structure is that you're the one making all the decisions. You're in control. You get to keep all the profits. So that's really great. But let's just think like a lawyer. On the flip side of that, it means that you're alone and that you're personally liable. So that's when we talk about unlimited liability. Your business isn't a separate entity from you. It's actually just you. You're responsible for the debts of your business. So what that means is that your personal assets that you have outside of the business could be at risk. So that's quite a big red flag. The next structure is a partnership. So a partnership is owned by 2 or more people. There's no rules about how a partnership might be divided up. Could be one person has about 99%, one person has 1%, could be 50-50. Could have 10 partners and they have 10% each. So you share the ownership, the control, profits and losses. So that's kind of a good thing, right? You've got more people to share the load, to share responsibility and the costs. But let's look at that from a different perspective. It means there's actually more cooks in the kitchen, and depending on how your partnership is structured, it's likely you'll have to reach agreement with all of your partners to make certain business decisions. Tax-wise, you'll be subject to your personal income tax, and you don't have to be registered on the company's office. So again, sort of quite low admin, quite low tax obligations. This is in comparison to a company, which is our third structure, and most people know sort of what a company is. What I want to get clear today is a company is a separate legal entity from you as an individual. A company can have one owner or it can have multiple. And actually anyone can set up a company. You don't have to be a certain size or meet certain criteria. And having a company gives you a feeling of legitimacy, which is really great for your business confidence. Now, one of the main benefits of having a company is to do with liability. So you can actually, in a company, limit that personal liability. So the risk to your personal assets is generally lower. It's capped at what the value of your shares in the company might be. If you've got a company, you do have some more admin and tax obligations. You've got to be registered with the New Zealand Companies Office and file annual returns. And you'll have to file a separate company tax return because individuals and companies are taxed differently. So what's the right structure for you? In the next slide, we've set out a table that's got a quick overview of some of the things I was talking about. So your admin, your tax, and how protected you are from a legal perspective with your personal assets. Now, the last column is to get you thinking about some of the questions a lawyer might ask. What's your exit strategy? What's your business goal? What's your long-term plan? Is it to sell? Is it to pass on to your children? Is it to go full-time with it? Or perhaps at this stage, you're starting out, you're not quite sure. So if you were to choose a sole trader structure, it's quite important to know that it can actually be a bit harder to sell this on because, as I said, it's not a separate entity. It's tied in with your personal assets. Similarly, a partnership, it's likely there'll be certain rules that you've agreed with your other partners about how easily someone could exit the partnership and sell their portion of the partnership. So let's compare that to the third structure we talked about, a company. It's typically a bit easier to exit from because you're able to sell whatever shares you own in the company, perhaps to some of your other shareholders or to someone external, to a new person coming in. Now, that's probably quite a lot to think about, but don't stress. The next slide will say you can change your business structure. It's not set in stone. You don't need to overthink it too much because it doesn't need to be forever. Lots of businesses start out as sole traders or partnerships and they grow into companies. You might think about changing your business structure when you start growing and doing more complex projects. They might carry greater financial or legal risk for you. Often we say the bigger the contract, the bigger the risk. You might also start out with needing a lot of people involved in your business, a lot of partners or shareholders, because you need those family and friends on board to support you at the start. But then as your business grows, you might decide, hey, I would like to buy them out. Or the opposite might happen. You might start with just you, and then you have people approach you who are looking to invest in your business. Or you find a great person who you want to give a slice of the pie to. You might have a great employee who you want to keep and incentivize and offer them some shares and let them have some skin in the game as well. And I know for some of you on the call, you're probably looking at some social enterprises or not-for-profit. So there are other types of business or organization structures that might suit the type of work that your organization is doing a bit better. I've listed a couple of them there, but I won't go into them on today. And then the last point I want to make on business structures, and it's something I think we'll cover in later webinars, is about going into business with other people. Something I definitely don't want to scare you off doing, but I want you to be protected as well as empowered. So depending on what business structure you're setting yourself up in, or if you're collaborating or partnering with someone, it's really good to have things written down. As much as you'd like to think that a handshake or being in business with a friend is fine, it's so much better to be protected with written agreements to deal with any bumps along the way or if things don't end well. So my advice is that any business that has more than one person involved should have a written agreement between those people, including if it's with family and friends. So these are often known as partnership or shareholder agreements. So partnership agreements for a partnership, shareholder agreements for a company. It's good to have this drawn up and agreed before you go into business, but it's definitely never too late to get one. So the types of things that one of these agreements would typically include would be who's involved, what percentage sort of control or ownership do they have, what's the business going to do? Is it going to do one thing or many things? What's each person going to bring to the table? What's their responsibilities? How are you or they going to fund the business? Who gets to make the decisions? And how much agreement might you need between all of your partners or your shareholders to make those decisions? Is it everyone? Is it half of you? Is it a higher majority? Then at the end, how might someone leave the partnership or the company? How might they sell their shares in the company? And when they leave, are they allowed to go and compete with you? Are they allowed to talk to your customers? All these things are really important to think about at the start rather than at the end. And then the last point there is disputes. What happens when you can't agree? Do you go to a third party? Do you talk to an expert? You don't really want to end up in court would be my commercial lawyer advice. So now you've had to think about what business structures you have internally and who might be involved in setting up your business. Now you can start looking externally about how you engage with others. I like to think of this as a relationship exercise. So take a step back and think about what relationships you have with your suppliers, with your customers, with your landlords or people who you use their co-working space. Who's designed your brand or who runs your website? Have you got funding from a bank or a third party? With a lot of these arrangements, you really want to have things written down. You want that feeling of security, like when you're driving your car and you've just renewed your car insurance. You want that with your legals. So today I've picked a couple of legal documents for someone who's just starting out their business and they've likely got an online presence, so operating a website. So the first one is terms of trade. These might be known as T's and C's, terms and conditions. You want to have a framework for the products and services that you're selling. These should cover things like a description of what the product or the service is, your price and your payment terms, what your rights are if a client doesn't pay, any extra costs you've got there, like delivery or shipping. Then a really important point about intellectual property. So that's who owns what. The content in the course that you're providing, the videos you're producing, your music, photos, design work. Then have a think about what information is confidential between you and the client. What's your liability or responsibility to your clients or customers if something goes wrong as a result of using your product or service? Other things to think about are sort of how terms can be changed or how you can end the relationship. That's a shopping list of things, and we can cover them when you talk to a lawyer. Or it's a good idea to go and look at someone's terms of trade and actually see all of those points set out. Hopefully they'll be set out in a clear manner. You want them to be really easy to understand and upfront when you first engage with your client. This lessens the chance of having a dispute with them later on. We all hate thinking that we didn't read that fine print. If there is a dispute, you can also be able to look at your terms, which are hopefully drafted in a way that protects you and your business. So I really think that the opportunity cost of not having customized terms of trade can be both financial or monetary and reputational. You really don't want to be headline news or have an influencer call you out on social media or just face legal costs in general. So get your terms of trade sorted. Then if you've set up a website, you're also going to want a privacy policy and website T's and C's. So they say data is the new gold, and we're going to take a look at this in another webinar. But basically, if your business collects personal information, which is things like names and address details about a particular individual, then you need to comply with the Privacy Act 2020. Most businesses do this by having a privacy policy. You've likely seen one or ticked one when you've gone on websites or ordered things online and given your personal information. Your policy would cover things like how you'll collect and disclose and use that information about your clients. So privacy is often a real concern for people, and having a policy is helpful because it builds trust with your clients. It's going to assure them that you're not going to spam them or sell their data. Then website terms and conditions. These are going to set out how people use your website and what they can and can't do. Again, it'll talk about your intellectual property rights, whether people can use your designs, your photos. Actually, you might not want them to, or you might. For advertising, you might want them to share it on social media and make sure that they credit you or tag you. Having the website T's and C's will also limit your liability or responsibility if someone experiences loss or damage from using your website or the content on it. Again, that's protecting yourself from legal risks. And if you link to any third-party websites, then you also want to say that you're not responsible and you don't have any control for those third-party websites. So that was a lot of legal. And my final point for you is just to say that consider what industry you're in. Is it an industry that's a bit more highly regulated than others? So might there be some additional things that when you're first starting out, you need to consider or include? Things like disclaimers or licenses around giving financial or medical advice or selling food or alcohol, things like that. Make sure you know upfront when you're first getting into the industry. Working with a lawyer as a sounding board when you're setting up all of these documents and these terms, or having them review what you've come up with, can be really helpful to keep you on the right track. We can help you understand the terms, the clauses, the contracts, point out what might be missing or remove something that's not really relevant, and really customize things to your business so that you can feel protected and confident about your business legals. So now, having inspired as opposed to scaring you into considering your business structure and your legal documents, I would love to introduce you to Samantha Peed from Simple Studios. Sam runs Simple Studios, and her vision is to create an online retail environment for young creative women. She is giving them a platform through the Simple Studios retail environment. She makes content from their creations and sells and fulfills orders. So the admin side of things is sorted and the creative woman can focus on creating. We met earlier this year and Sam reached out about setting up an agreement with the woman who supply products for her online store. And so I've corralled her into this today, but thank you so much for coming along.
It's having me.
Pleasure. So we're just going to talk about your experience working with the lawyer. Full disclosure, it was me, but you can be completely honest. And I know you've been running your business for years before we met, and so you probably got a lot of experiences and war stories about all of that anyway. So if we start at the beginning, and I can ask you sort of how did you first set up your business?
So I first began Simple Studios as Simple Prints, and so it was creating custom illustrations of people's artwork, and I sort of naively began at uni, just had a bit of fun with it, and it turned into quickly selling to people that were more than just my friends. But at the time I actually started it with a best friend of mine. So we began a partnership, and essentially it was when things started to go wrong and our visions for our business began to not align with each other, and it was that exit strategy that we didn't have in place that led me to need your help.
Yeah, I know. It's always something you obviously don't wish for, but sometimes it's something you need to plan for in the worst case. So did you have any agreements when you first started out or anything?
So when we first started, not really. We knew that we would put in 50-50 effort, and that would result in 50-50 output of the income.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was I guess that exit strategy that we didn't have, we didn't ever discuss, because we always just thought our visions would align and it would grow into what we both wanted, which isn't how people and humans work.
Yeah, no, and it's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about then when you came to me, or actually probably when you first just reached out to sort of the network that we met through and said, can anyone help me? Did you have any initial hesitations about working with a lawyer?
I think the biggest hesitation, obviously, when you're starting out in business, revenue isn't the biggest thing that you have, and so a lawyer tends to be one of the expensive, unattainable expenses that you don't think you need at the time, and then I guess, as you say, it's when it goes wrong is when you realize. And so I guess my biggest hesitation was the money, but then also coming back to what you know is only what you know. And so because I had that experience, I knew that I needed this part of help, but I didn't know what else it could open up for me.
Yeah, that's often the case of, I think, our first meeting, we walked up to the Brooklyn Wind Turbine and we talked nonstop the whole time because I kept asking question after question just to really get a sense of your whole business and your risk appetite, and the things that you as a business owner focus on can often be quite different from what a lawyer focuses on, as you said. So yeah, it was a good first conversation.
A lot of learning.
A lot of learning from both of us, which was great. So I worked with Sam on a consignment agreement, as you sort of said at the start, to have her female creatives supply her products to then put on her online platform. Now you have your agreement. How's it gone? How do you feel about it?
I think the best thing about it is, because what I'm really trying to achieve is that us as creative women are really valuing ourselves in the work that we're doing. And I think a lot of that draws back to the confidence that we have, and having this agreement now gives me clarity on the expectations I have of the creatives, and also that the creators have of me. And so it's very clear, and so it sets us up well going forward, and it gives us the confidence that we need.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Yeah. So do you have any advice for anyone starting out in business generally, working with a lawyer? How is it?
I think I loved starting out in business just as naively as I did starting out. It was really fun, and I think I've enjoyed the journey of learning things as they came up. But in specific with a lawyer is find someone that you actually connect with. Like, I can't really see myself getting a consignment agreement from someone older that I don't really, align with as well. And getting the same sort of, I don't know, I think connecting with you in the way it's come about, like, I feel that you're genuinely wanting to empower me as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and I think that's really important.
It's great to hear. And what are your next steps in your business journey to share with everyone?
I think just building a really strong community and network of creative women, and then also providing them the network that I'm building and meeting you, for example, and really learning how we can set ourselves up for the long term and that we can still be in business. I'm really passionate about, a lot of my passion comes from my mum, and she really wished that she never left business and didn't give up being in business to raise my brother and I, because that would have been a bit of a challenge knowing me as a child. But it's made me really passionate about as women that we can still continue to be in business and be creative, and when and if we choose to have children, that we can still have our businesses and our identity and confidence and value in ourselves as women. And legally, I'd be looking to definitely get all my website terms and conditions and all that sort of stuff fully.
Especially sort of in an industry like yours, where creatives, their intellectual property rights is their sort of business. So it's good to get.
And I think
right.
A lot of us, we are just creating, and we don't realize that we have all of that stuff that could go wrong. So it's nice to have that confidence and ability to have, just be helped in that area.
No, well, I love helping and sort of giving you that confidence to go out and sort of educate others about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
So I'll just recap for everyone the kind of points we've gone through today. So when you're starting out, just really look at what business structure is right for you, knowing that it can change, as Sam's has and as many do, but be mindful of who you're going into business with, and when you're going into business with others, that it's good to have things written down at the start when everything is rosy and you're all aligned. You also want to think about your external relationships and what contracts or agreements you should have in place to protect you and your business. There are financial and reputational risks by not having your ducks in a row. So using a lawyer can be a great way to get those ducks in a row and to help you feel confident and protected when you're out there doing business. So just to thank everyone for joining us today, we'd love to offer a complimentary 15-minute discovery call. We'd be happy to talk about your business structure, legal documents, or sort of anything else that's come up from this webinar. The next webinar we're going to do is on protecting your brand and ideas, which are questions that I get a lot. So I think it should be a good discussion. We'll get on an IP expert and have a bit of a Q&A with her and take some questions. I need to mention that we're going to send a short survey out after this. We would really appreciate if you filled it out, and you can let us know if there's any other topics we can cover that would help you out. We've also thought about sort of growing your team, taking up space in property, and then some legal do's and don'ts of social media, which we all love. So I don't know if there are any questions, but if there are none, that's good. Hopefully we've answered all of them, but feel free to get in touch by email or phone or just through our website. But thank you all so much for joining us. It was great, and this was the first of hopefully many, so hope to see you again soon. Thank you. You just like really whip through